Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this episode 3779BN. Today's date is September 25th, 2025, and the title of the episode is Deep State is Moving from an Info War to a Physical War, Insurrection, C before D, The Start. Did you know a growing body of research shows that when you diet, your body fights back? Levels of ghrelin, the hunger hormone, shoots up, while leptin, the hormone that signals fullness, drops. That's why most diets feel like an endless battle. The more weight you try to lose, the hungrier you get. It's not a willpower issue. It's literally your biology. This is why I use my secret weight loss weapon, and I'm obsessed with the results. BioTrust GLP-1 Elevate is designed to naturally trigger my own body's weight loss signals without drugs, prescriptions, or needles. It promotes a feeling of fullness, reduce cravings, reduce hunger hormones, help me lose fat instead of muscle, and supports healthy blood sugar levels. Be sure to grab a bottle now while it's 50% off and start experiencing real results only at trimwithx22.com. Plus, by ordering now, you'll also guarantee 2 free ebooks titled The 3-Week Diet and 53 Fat-Burning Smoothies and Milkshakes. Once again, the website is trimwithx22.com, or just click the link in the description. Let's get into the economic collapse, political, and geopolitical news. Now, the deep state, the corrupt politicians, big tech fake news, the puppet masters, you can see they're now moving the information war into a physical war. And I do believe we knew that this was coming. We knew that eventually they were never, ever going to win the information war. And they were going to have to take their axe out physically. And that's what we're seeing right now. We're starting to see all of the left. They're starting to attack the right. And who's driving this? Well, the fake news, the Ds, you name it, they're pushing this with their rhetoric. And of course, what they're doing is they're trying to turn this around saying, oh no, it's Trump who is pushing the rhetoric. But when you hear fascists and you hear Hitler and you see Newscomb and his team putting out messages when they're talking about Stephen Miller and they're using the 2 letters SS, you could see exactly what they're doing. They're trying to create a civil war in this country. They're trying to push it with everything that they have. But think about what Trump and the Patriots are doing right now. They knew that they were going to go down this path. And as they move from an information war into a physical war, what are they actually doing? They're moving into an insurrection. And once they completely move into an insurrection, what happens? Trump can use the National Guard, can use the military to actually shut it all down. With words, it's a little bit more difficult. So why not let your enemy do what they do best? And I do believe this is exactly what Trump is doing. And while this is going on, you have to ask the question, why would they be doing this? Well, first of all, Trump is deporting all the illegals. Now, I'm not saying every single one has been deported. They've deported about 2 million. Actually, some of them have left on their own and others have been deported. But again, they see the writing on the wall with this. He shut down the Social Security numbers. He has Harmeet Dillon going around cleaning up the voter rolls, and it's going to be very, very difficult for them to cheat in the election. And I think this is why Newsom's out there letting everyone know that maybe there won't be a 2028 election, because this is how panicked they really are. Plus, the evidence against the deep state players that came after Trump back in 2016, well, a lot of that information is coming out. Now, like we said before, they're not going after these individuals with the Russia hoax. They're going after these individuals with lesser crimes. Because when you're bringing out evidence saying, hey, by the way, this person lied to Congress, all you got to do is look back in Congress, look at the lies, and then look at the document showing that, hey, look, this person leaked something, but he said he didn't, but he actually did. He got caught in a lie. Same thing with Letitia James and many others. Oh, wait. No, I didn't do this, but there it is in black and white on a document that you signed. These crimes are very, very easy. Now, you have to remember how Trump and the Patriots do this. They started out very, very slowly so people can digest it. If they lied about this, what else are they capable of? What other crimes have they committed? It's almost like Tylenol. Hey, Tylenol causes autism. Again, you let the deep state players do what they do best. You let the fake news do what they do best. Let them counter it, and then you bring out more evidence, which counters everything that they've been saying and shows that they are covering up everything. The same thing's going to happen to Comey. The same thing's going to happen to Letitia James. The same thing's going to happen to all of these individuals. And once again, we could see Trump is taking the stance of, I have no idea what's going on. Yes, Comey's a bad guy, but I'm not pushing this. I'm not doing this. But he knows he's a bad guy. He should be in jail. And this is how you keep the optics. And you could see that it's going to be most likely Comey before the D class, because you have to introduce all of this. You have to show that, look, these people are liars. They lied on the forms. We have documented evidence. This is what they're doing. This is just the start. And while all this is going on, what do you think the deep state players are going to do? They're going to push distractions. Number one, we know they're going from an informational war to a physical war. So you're going to get those distractions. We're already starting to see this. But we know what Trump is planning. Most likely he'll be bringing the National Guard into where? Texas? Most likely to protect who? The ICE agents. So basically, is he going to be pre-positioning the National Guard all over the place? The more the deep state does, the more they go after ICE in all these different states and all these different cities. What do you think Trump is going to do? They're actually making the case for him. He's going to bring in the National Guard. Well, we got to protect the ICE agents. So you know what? Let's go ahead and disperse the National Guard in these states, in these cities. He's pre-positioning. That's what he's doing right now. Because he knows eventually when they go full physical, it's an insurrection. Is it going to happen tomorrow? No. I do believe it's going to be very, very close to the midterms, and as more and more evidence comes out against the deep state players. And what's the other thing that the deep state players are doing? They're trying to push a war. And you could see Trump has already set them up. So basically, Trump is pushing them down the path so they would cause an insurrection, a physical war here in this country. He's also pushing them down the path to start World War III. All of this is being done so Trump can trap them in all of this. And you could see Hegseth, he has called generals, admirals, all back to D.C. for one reason or another. Now, you also have to remember, this could be because of the renaming of the Department of Defense and Department of War. Now, really think about the timing of all this. Why did Trump decide to rename the Department of Defense to the Department of War? Do you think he's going to have the deep state players push us to war? And if he says, well, the Department of War has to be on alert, standby, ready to go for war, it's a very different picture than the Department of Defense, isn't it? So it seems like he is now pushing the deep state players down this path to trap them all. Because remember, he's going to be the peacemaker. We're not entering World War III. Will it look scary? Absolutely. Will it look like we're going to war? Absolutely. Are we going to war? Absolutely not. Trump is the peacemaker. The same thing with what's going to happen here in this country with the riots. Are they going to burn every city to the ground? No. Trump is pre-positioning, and he's getting prepared for the insurrection that they're going to have. So this is going to wake up a lot of people, and people are going to say, wow, Trump just stopped World War III. Remember, we have the Ds, we have the rhinos, we have the fake news, we have the EU saying, hey, we're just going to send a message to Russia. We can shoot down your planes if you enter any of these countries. Again, do you think Russia's really entering these countries? No. But he's already set this up. Trump has already pushed them to this point. So basically, you could see Trump is pushing all of this in this direction. Because again, how do you actually have peace? It has to be driven by the people. Yes, these small little skirmishes where you can end it very quickly, no problem. But if you have one side, like the deep state players are trying to start World War III, you just can't say, well, here's the peace negotiation. Here's the document, sign it. They're not going to do it. But if we're on the edge of war and it's scary and you have the people behind you, the people could say, no, we're not doing this. And the people around the world can say, no, we're not doing this. The same thing with the riots that they're going to commit in this country. The people can say, no, we don't want this. We don't want cities burning. Do something. Well, I just so happen to have the National Guard in Memphis, in Texas, in D.C., in Chicago, in L.A. You know what? Thank God we have them there, because now we can shut all this down very, very quickly. Plus, I have my quick reaction team here ready to go at a moment's notice, and I can bring them wherever I want. Plus, if I need the military can assist the National Guard and shut down the insurrection very, very easily. Now we're going to be talking a lot more about this and what Trump is going to do with the shutdown of the government, because you can see the deep state players, the Ds, they're trying to blackmail Trump, but it's not going to work. And we'll explain why in a little bit. But first, let's talk about Tyler Robinson. It looks like Tyler Robinson has been appointed a public defender, Catherine Nestor. And what's very interesting about Catherine Nestor, Kathy was invited by Chief Justice Roberts of the U.S. Supreme Court to serve on the Advisory Committee on the Federal Rules of Evidence. She also served on the National Steering Committee for the Clemency Project under Obama. Isn't that interesting that she is now defending this individual? Now, I do believe that this was a gigantic operation. And yes, this was run by the deep state players. Maybe some foreign governments were involved in this. And what's very interesting is that Charlie Kirk's assassin, Tyler Robertson, he made contact with police officers near the wooded area where the rifle was stashed, which is very, very interesting. And we can see more and more evidence is coming out. And I do believe that Cash is going to be coming out with evidence of what really happened with Tyler Robinson, most likely very, very soon. But the other thing that we could see is that the deep state players, they're doing what they always do. They're lying. The fake news is lying. The Ds are lying. They're all lying. NBC News put out a story saying ICE held a 5-year-old autistic girl in Massachusetts to pressure a father to surrender. Now, again, we know that every time they put stories out like this, what are they trying to do? They're trying to go to people's heartstrings, and they're trying to say, look, get emotional about this. Look what they're doing. I mean, this is why news comes out there saying, look, they're just grabbing just people off the streets. No, these are criminals. As soon as you enter this country, you're a criminal. You entered illegally. And if you commit more crimes, well, you're a criminal. And if you committed crimes in another country, you're a criminal. So they're not just taking citizens off the street. They're taking the illegals who are not citizens in this country, who are criminals, off the street. But since NBC put this out there, Homeland Security decided to respond. And they said, NBC News, these smears are sick. Our ICE agents never used a 5-year-old girl as bait. The criminal illegal alien target of the operation, with previous arrests for domestic abuse, strangulation, and vandalizing property, abandoned his own child in a car. Edwards Hip Mejia, a criminal illegal alien from Guatemala, ignored law enforcement emergency lights and darted inside his house, abandoning his 5-year-old daughter in the car. Officers helped rescue the child and called local police to report the abandonment. Stop the smears, stop the lies. And guess what happened? Well, NBC News decided to take that article and make a correction. And this is what they put out. Video shows ICE with 5-year-old girl while agents attempt to arrest her father. Correction, an earlier version of this article mischaracterized the activities of ICE agents in the video. The article has been updated. You mean you lied? You didn't decide to reach out to Homeland Security to find out what was really going on? Why was the child left there? Because they were going after a criminal? Once again, you could see the deep state players, the fake news, they'll just continually push this out there. And this is why everyone in this country has to continually call them out on all of this. Every step of the way, we need to call them out on all of their lies. And think about it. Go back to 2016 before Trump. There was no one calling them out on the lies. And when Trump came down the escalator and then started to call the fake news just that, fake news, people were like scratching their head. Why is he saying fake news? That doesn't make any sense. Today, it's a very different story because now people realize, holy crap, it truly is the fake news. They've been using propaganda on the people for a very long time. But you could see that the deep state players, Soros, they are now directing Antifa to take this to the next level. And yes, we'll be talking about Soros and how he's being investigated because we can see there's a lot of attorneys now in D.C. that are looking at Soros. Because you have to remember, Antifa is a terrorist organization. But you can see that Antifa right now is being instructed to take this to the next level with ICE. Andy No says, An Antifa blog site is issuing a call for further attacks on ICE Gov facilities across the country. The post also explains Antifa's ideology, sociopathy, chaos, destruction, and violence for the sake of becoming ungovernable. This is why Antifa's focus changes from Occupy-related rioting to BLM to Trans-Tifa. Anything that they can use to incite violence, they will exploit. Every fist that hurls a piece of concrete through a bank or an ICE agent's car window has the potential to ignite a wildfire. For some of us, chaos and destruction are the only activities in which we experience life as liberated creativity. So you can see ICE right now, they are now moving into the realm of insurrection. And they're being instructed to keep pushing this. Keep pushing this, and soon Trump will say, we have an insurrection on our hand. He will say, go home peacefully and patriotically. Don't do this. But again, these people are not going to listen because this is the insurgency. This is the insurrection. And this is why Trump and the Patriots are now pre-positioning the National Guard in all these cities. And as they keep carrying out these acts in all these different cities, that Trump's going to say, well, the next city is in Texas. The next city is in, Illinois, maybe Chicago, and so forth and so on. So he's pre-positioning everybody. But Kash Patel, he let everyone know that they found out a lot more information on what happened in Texas in regards to the shooting at the ICE facility. This is what Kash put out. FBI Dallas and FBI headquarters have been working 24/7 to seize devices, exploit data, and process writings obtained on location and in the subject's person's residence bedroom. This FBI is committed to providing timely updates as promised. The perp downloaded a document titled Dallas County Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Management, containing a list of DHS facilities. He conducted multiple searches of ballistic and the Charlie Kirk shot video between 9:23 to 9:24. Between 8:19 and 8:24, he searched apps that track the presence of ICE agents. One of the handwritten notes recovered read, hopefully this will give ICE agents real terror to think there's a sniper with AP rounds on that roof. Further accumulated evidence to this point indicates a high degree of pre-attack planning. The FBI will provide further updates when able. So wait a minute. He used an app that tracked the presence of ICE agents. I remember that app. Karen Levitt clears it all up. 3 months ago, CNN irresponsibly gave free publicity to an app that recklessly shares the location of ICE agents. It has now been revealed that leftist lunatic shooter who opened fire on Dallas ICE facility was using one of these apps. The liberal media is complicit in the increased threats and violence against ICE. We see it every day. They're quick to write a fake story portraying ICE in a negative light, often omitting the real facts of these cases, and they hardly ever write about the vicious criminals that ICE is arresting every day to make our country safer. And you can see just from the NBC article, the CBS article, and all the articles that they put out, they're always fake because they're running cover for who? The deep state players. Remember, they are the bullhorn of the deep state. They're still pushing propaganda on the American people. Trump responds to the shooting at the ICE facility in Dallas, and he says the following. I've been briefed on the deadly shooting at the ICE field office in Dallas, Texas. It has now been revealed the deranged shooter wrote an anti-ICE on his shell casings. This is despicable. The brave men and women of ICE are trying to do their jobs and remove the worst of the worst criminals out of our country, but they are facing an unprecedented increase of threats, violence, and attacks by deranged radical leftists. This violence is the result of the radical left Democrats constantly demonizing law enforcement, calling for ICE to be demolished, and comparing ICE officers to Nazis. The continuing violence from radical left terrorists in the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's assassination must be stopped. ICE officers and other brave members of law enforcement are under grave threat. We have already declared Antifa a terrorist organization, and I will be signing an executive order this week to dismantle these domestic terrorist networks. I am calling on all Democrats to stop the rhetoric against ICE and American law enforcement right now. The Trump administration is fully committed to backing law enforcement, strong borders, securing our homeland, deporting violent illegal criminals, and fully rooting out the left-wing domestic terrorism that is terrorizing our country. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So basically, any domestic terrorism network. So it's not just Antifa, it's any network, NGO, shell company, you name it, organization, you name it, that's assisting in all of this. So he's just put them on notice. So basically, you could see the deep state players, they're pushing towards what? An insurrection. Trump now is setting everything up to counter the insurrection. Actually, we can call it an insurgency, and he's setting everything up for the counterinsurgency. But once again, you could see that the deep state players, they're not going to stop. They're going to keep pushing very, very hard. And Trump, he knows this. He's bringing them down this path. He knows exactly what they're going to do. And this is why he's prepping for it. And yes, when the time comes, it will be clean and swift. Now, it might go on for a day or two or something like that, and people might get a little bit nervous and scared. But once again, he's pre-positioning everything to make sure that the National Guard, the military, they can swoop in and just take care of all this. It might go on a little bit longer in some of the blue states and the blue cities because, again, they're going to push back with everything that they have. They're going to try to stop it. But in the end, they're going to fail just like everything else. Now, just yesterday and the day before that, we mentioned that YouTube said that they were going to start to bring influencers back up on YouTube. You know, those people that were brought down during COVID, during the elections. Now, of course, were they brought down because of the elections, because of COVID, or did they designate other policy violations for these people? And I think that's what they did. So this way they can skirt around this. But what's very interesting, there are certain individuals that tried to get back onto YouTube, and YouTube took those channels down. And then they put out an update, and this is what they said. We've seen some previously terminated creators try to start new channels. To clarify, our pilot program on terminations is not yet open. It's still against our community guidelines for previously terminated users to use, possess, or create other channels, and we will terminate new channels. So basically, they haven't done anything yet. And if you try to put something up there, they're going to shut you down. And I wouldn't be surprised if they bring a lot of the channels back up. But again, they're going to be watching them very, very closely. They'll probably have their AI algorithms monitoring them. And as soon as they violate one of their other policies, because they've just introduced so many different policies, they'll just bring them down under a different violation. But let's see how this all plays out. Maybe they're telling the truth. I don't think so. Now, the other thing that we could see is we know the deep state players, they want complete and utter control of AI. And we know the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, he was out there letting everyone know that AI is going to be the new future. Well, when he says this, he means that he's going to have complete and utter control, and it's going to be centralized under the deep state system. And yes, the AI then could be used to censor people because, again, it would be trained in what they wanted. And Director Michael Kratsiosis says the U.S. totally rejects all efforts by international bodies to assert centralized control and global governance of AI. Ideological fixations on social equity, climate catastrophism, and so-called existential risks are dangers to progress and obstacles to responsibly harnessing this tech. And he's absolutely right. But you know, the UN, the deep state players are all part one of the same. They want this one world government where they centralize everything and control everything. This has been their plan from the very, very beginning. And we could see at this point in time, this is not going to happen. If you notice, Trump, the Patriots, they are separating from the UN, separating from all the world organizations, the WHO, the World Bank, the World Economic Forum. If you notice, they do this on purpose because, again, they want all the sovereignty from all the different countries to go up into these organizations, and these countries lose their sovereignty. But this is not going to happen, especially under the watch of Trump. But you can see the UK and probably many other countries, they're moving down the path of what they've been talking about for a very long time. And the UK right now is moving to digital IDs. Now think about what they did. They created the problem, and now they're introducing the solution. Digital ID is going to be made law for all adults in the UK. The proposal are the government's latest attempt to tackle illegal immigration, with the ID serving as a form of proof of the right to live and work in the UK. So now you're starting to realize why they were bringing in, and this is just one agenda, why they were bringing in all these illegals to convince everyone, listen, we have all these illegals in here, and we need to find out who's a citizen. We need to find out who's has the right to speak. We need to find out who has the right to live here. So we're going to have to track you every step of the way. So every adult in Britain will require a digital ID under plans to tackle illegal immigration. The so-called BRIC card would verify a citizen's right to live and work in the UK. Isn't that interesting? Isn't this what they were talking about? So basically, they created this problem, and they're giving you a solution that they created. Why not just get rid of all the illegals? Wouldn't that be easier, just like we're doing here in the U.S.? Well, they don't want that because the digital ID is going to be used for what? Digital currency. It's going to be used for what? To allow you to have access to certain things. And if you don't obey, they can shut off your electrical appliances. So now they're actually going down this path. And now it's becoming reality. Now, of course, Europe, is going to do this. Remember, they don't have a constitution like we have. Plus, we have President Trump. So once again, just like with the vaccine passports, they're pushing this agenda. Here in this country, that is not going to happen. And you can see this is where they were always leading us. Now it's becoming reality. It's not conspiracy anymore. It's here. And they're going to try to push this in the UK, in France, in Germany, in Australia. Because what are they getting prepped for? Actually, we already had Christine Lagarde prepare the central bank digital currency. We already had the central bankers letting everyone know this is where we're moving. We're moving into the Great Reset. That's what they're going to try to do to get us to the Great Reset. What do they have to do? They need war. What I find very interesting, that 1 in 4 low-income households spend 15% or more of their income on energy bills. This leaves many families having to decide between putting food on the table or paying their power bills. Since 2022, retail electricity costs have increased faster than the rate of inflation. This is why I use this magical little device and would never go a month without it. It is state-of-the-art energy-saving tool that minimizes dirty electricity and environmental impact. This gadget can be effortlessly connected to any regular electrical socket and employs advanced technology to oversee and fine-tune energy usage in your household. By scrutinizing and modifying the electric current, it can notably diminish the quantity of energy consumed by your home appliances and gadgets without impairing their effectiveness or operation, and help support lowering your energy bills. Do your wallet a favor and grab one while it's on sale now for up to 60% off only at don'twastepower.com before your next pricey power bill comes in. Plus, if you order now, you'll also get a 60-day 100% money-back guarantee and several other bonuses. Once again, that deal is only at don'twastepower.com or click the link in the description. And they have to down their system that operates today. And I'm talking about their economy. That's what they're doing right now. And this is why Trump is leading them down this path of war, because he knows that they won't stop pushing this. So why not use this against them? We've always known it was part of the 16-year plan. We've always known that they were going to start a nuclear war. Actually, if Trump didn't win in 2016 and Hillary Clinton became president, we would be in World War III right now. Actually, most of us wouldn't even be alive. Trump even admitted this when he was being interviewed. So they're just going back to the same 16-year plan, and he's going to use it against them, just like they were using the 16-year plan to bring in all the illegals in this country, to down the economy, to go woke. He used it all against them. Will it look scary? Yes, it's going to look scary. Are you going to think we're heading to World War III? Absolutely. Are they going to play it up like we're heading into World? Absolutely. Are we? No. So just prepare yourself for what is going to come. Now, we might see events. We might see a false flag with nuclear weapons or a dirty nuke or missiles flying. Just get prepared if it should go down this way. I'm not saying it's going to, but just be prepared if something like this should occur. And what's very interesting is South Korea right now is saying that North Korea is holding up about 2 tons of weapons-grade uranium. Now, remember, going back to the 16-year plan, it was supposed to be North Korea that was going to kick off the war. Not actually North Korea. It was the deep state players, probably in a sub, going to fire a nuclear missile into the United States. And what's very interesting is we could see that South Korea right now is actually putting the narrative out that North Korea is holding 2 tons of weapons-grade uranium. That is very, very interesting. And the other thing that we could see is that, yes, there are cyber attacks happening right now. And there was a cyber attack on Jaguar Land Rover, and it's actually exposing the UK supply chain. So we're starting to see cyber attacks, and now the deep state players are calling them hybrid attacks because we're seeing these drones flying around the airports, and they're calling them hybrid attacks. We have drones, we have cyber attacks, and you could see that they're building on this. So 6 European airports have been shuttered this week over the appearance of mystery drones, with the Danish government calling it a hybrid attack, the usual signal implying Moscow's involvement. So basically, they're trying to set all of this up, saying that Russia is going to be cyber attacking, Russia is flying drones. And I think this is why Trump said, listen, go ahead. If there's a drone flying in your airspace, if there's a Russian plane flying in your airspace, shoot it down. Shoot it all down. Now, I think Trump knows that this is not Russia. I think Trump knows that these are most likely people in the country, and these cyber attacks aren't coming from Russia. The jets aren't from Russia, but he wants them to shoot it down. Now, how many are we going to see shot down? Maybe we'll see 1 or 2. Are they going to say it was Russia? And Russia's going to say, that wasn't ours. But let's see how this all plays out. This is going to be very, very interesting. I think for the most part, they're just going to use it as a scare tactic. They might shoot down one to prove to everyone, look, we shot down a Russian drone. But I think what's going to happen is evidence is going to be produced and it's going to show that this was not a Russian drone. Actually, the drone that was flying over the Netherlands was not Russian whatsoever. The cyber attack that happened on the airports was a British individual. So once again, this is not happening. Now, this might be tied to deep state players, but again, it's not Russia, because we know that deep state players, they're trying to get us into war. Now, the other thing that's very interesting is that the U.S., they scrambled to intercept Russian warplanes off the Alaska coast. Now, did Russia invade U.S. territory? No, they didn't. Where were they flying? They were flying in the defense identification zone, and basically they're allowed to fly there. So the U.S., they sent up E-3 early warning and control aircraft and 4 F-16s and 4 KC-135 tanker planes to positively identify and intercept the Russian aircraft. The ADIZ is considered international airspace that borders U.S. and Canadian sovereign airspace. Such an action by Russia and aerial forces has become somewhat routine. So basically, they were flying in international airspace. But again, the fake news, they like to really put it out there. They want everyone to say, holy crap, what's happening here? Russia is invading us. They're attacking us. No, that is not happening whatsoever. And since Trump said that Europe should shoot down Russian planes, European diplomats have warned Russia that NATO is ready to shoot down Russian aircraft that violate NATO airspace. So once again, Trump has completely and utterly set them up. And Lavrov of Russia says NATO and the EU have declared war on Russia and are directly participating in it. So basically, Trump is saying, I'm out of this. The U.S. is out of this. And the EU, NATO, you're going to have to go on with this by yourselves. So basically, we know that the EU, NATO, they're not going to have the ability to purchase the weapons to fight a war. Now, of course, they're hoping that the U.S. would join in, but I think Trump is saying, no, we're not joining into this whole thing. This is your war. Good luck with it. And we know that the EU, they won't be able to keep its promise to buy vast amounts of U.S. weapons because, once again, they don't have the ability to do this. Trump, I do believe he knows this. Now, what's very interesting is that Hegseth, he has summoned military's top officials worldwide for a rare and urgent meeting at Marine Corps Base in Virginia. So he's asked for generals, admirals, and many others to meet him there. Now, is this because they renamed the Department of Defense the Department of War, or is this to inform them of what is happening now, that we might see a false flag, we might see a war, we might see something coming up? Right now, we don't know the exact reason. Maybe right after this, something will come out. But let's just break this down for a second. Trump changed the Department of Defense to the Department of War. He knows the 16-year plan. He knows the EU, NATO, the deep state players, they want to bring us to war. Tells a reporter that if Russia flies a plane or a drone in the country's airspace, shoot it down. Tells a reporter that Ukraine can take back all the land with the help of EU and NATO. Puts out a truth saying Russia is weak when actually talking about NATO and the EU. So basically, I think he's trying to push EU and NATO to war. Russia's weak. They're a paper tiger. Actually, it's the opposite. But he's saying this so EU and NATO think like, wait a minute, Russia's not that strong. We can take them. It seems like he's trying to push them into this. And then we have Hegseth calling the military leaders back to the Department of War. And that's very, very important. The designation of Department of War. So I do believe we're seeing the information war turning into a physical war where we have Antifa, the illegals, the criminals on the streets, pushing riots on the streets. And now we have Trump pushing the EU and NATO and the deep state players into the war that they want. I think he's doing this all on purpose. Because once again, I do believe what we're going to see is some type of Cuban missile crisis. I don't mean we're going to see, the missiles being shipped by boat to Cuba, but some type of similar scenario where everything is tense and it might look like we're heading into nuclear war. While Trump is using back channels to speak to Putin, speak to China, and actually going after those individuals that are trying to push us into war. Just like the movie Sum of All Fears. Very interesting. Now, the other thing that's very interesting is that Kamala Harris, she was out there letting everyone know that the elections were very, very close. Yeah, they were close because they were rigged. And if you remove the rigging, she got pretty much no votes whatsoever. Trump responded to her and said Kamala Harris, who is dumb as a rock, is going around and using a standard part of her speech on why she lost the election, that 2024 was the closest presidential election in the 21st century. Everyone knows this is a lie and was covered as such by Fox News. I won the Electoral College 312 to 2026, a landslide. Counties nationwide 2,600 to 525, a landslide. All 7 swing states, a landslide. And despite the fact that California's fake mail-in ballots came in at ridiculous numbers, it was rigged, I still won the popular vote by millions. Bush, as an example, won the election by 537 votes, and many other elections were very close. Kamala's closest in the 21st century soundbite was, like everything else in the Democratic Party, a total lie. I expect an apology. Thank you for your attention to this matter. And they should apologize to him. Because actually, remove all the rigging, I think everyone's going to see that she really didn't get any votes whatsoever. But you can see the deep state players, they are continually pushing their rhetoric of Hitler, Nazis, and Governor Newsom, his press office, they put this out. And you can see that this is what they're doing. They're doing it subliminally. They're doing it right out in the open. They want their people to know, listen, these are the people that are pushing everything against you. And it's just like Hitler. It's just like fascism. It's just like what you saw during World War II. This is what they're doing to these people. And these people are reacting to it. This is why you see these people assassinating Charlie Kirk. This is why you see these people going after ICE agents. This is why Antifa is putting out, listen, we got to attack more ICE agents, more facilities. But this is what Governor Newsom's press office put out. Many people are saying that submissive Stephen, and this is in quotes and parentheses, SS. Gee, I wonder what that means. Miller is throwing the biggest, most pathetic tantrum in the entire West Wing, crying, stomping, wailing our quotas, our arrests of children. How will we survive without raiding the innocent? So basically, they're trying to convince everyone that the Trump administration, the people of this country, they're Nazis, they're fascists, they're SS, and they keep doing this. But you know what's happening right now? You can see the deep state players, the Clintons. Yes, they're part of the deep state players. They're panicking right now because Trump has shut down USAID, which means they are not getting their funds. They're not able to launder the money through the NGOs into their shell companies. and they don't have the ability to kick back the money to certain people. So what are they doing? Well, Bill Clinton says, listen, we need to use the global initiative, the Clinton Global Initiative, as a counterweight to aid cuts. So he's talking about HIV, AIDS, public health, and everything else. And they're saying that his people need to use the Clinton Global Initiative to counter all of this. Activist Abigail Disney urged Clinton Global Initiative attendees to be more aggressive in their giving and encourage them to support cultural movements instead of programs. Isn't that interesting? So basically, listen, deep state players, we're not getting the funding anymore from USAID. That dried up. So what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to, all you billionaires and millionaires, all the money that was laundered to you, you're going to have to go deep into your pockets, and you're going to have to give it to the Clinton Global Initiative. Then we'll launder that money into all the programs that are no longer getting this money, so we can have the riots, so we can have everything. So remember, the AIDS, the health, the education, these are all cover stories. Let's go back to post 1220, April 21st, 2018. It says HIV AIDS, Clinton Foundation conflicts of interest. Pharma Alliance, HRC, BC, Hillary Rodham Clinton, Bill Clinton, protect domestic high prices. Domestic equals payday. I do believe this was a cover story, and now they're using this to launder the money because they don't have USAID anymore. Very, very interesting. And once again, we could see that Trump, he is now shutting down the UN. And the UN tried to actually shut him down, and they tried it 3 times. And he responded to all of this and said, a real disgrace took place at the United Nations yesterday. Not 1, not 2, but 3 very sinister events. 3 strikes, you're out. First, the escalator going up to the main speaking floor came to a screeching halt. It stopped on a dime. It's amazing that Melania and I didn't fall forward onto the sharp edges of these steel steps, face first. Were they doing that on purpose? Were they trying to kill them? Maybe. It was only that we were each holding the handrail tightly, or it would have been a disaster. This was absolutely sabotage, as noted by a day's earlier post in the London Times that said UN workers joked about turning off an escalator. The people that did it should be arrested. Then, as I stood there before a television crowd of millions of people all over the world and important leaders in the hall, my teleprompter didn't work. It was stone cold dark. I immediately thought to myself, wow, first the escalator vent and now a bad teleprompter? What kind of place is this? I then proceeded to make a speech without a teleprompter, which kicked in about 15 minutes later. The good news is the speech has gotten a fantastic reviews. Maybe they appreciated the fact that the very few people who could have done what I did. And third, after making the speech, I was told that the sound was completely off in the auditorium where the speech was made. The world leaders, unless they used the interpreter's earpiece, couldn't hear a thing. The first person I saw at the conclusion of the speech was Melania, who was sitting right up front. I said, how did I do? And she said, I couldn't hear a word you said. This wasn't a coincidence. This was triple sabotage at the UN. They ought to be ashamed of themselves. I'm sending a copy of this letter to the Secretary General, and I demand an immediate investigation. No wonder the United Nations hasn't been able to do the job that they were put into existence to do. All security tapes at the escalator should be saved, especially the emergency stop button. The Secret Service is involved. Thank you for your attention to this matter. And yes, they should track down and find out who these people are, because it looks like they tried to have him fall onto the metal stairs. Unbelievable. And this is just something that's very, very interesting, and Wall Street Maverick put this out. The United States pays 25% of the United Nations budget, but only 4% of the UN employees are American. The UN is filled with socialists and communists in all of the key decision-making roles, deciding how the 67 billion budget is spent. So basically, we know that the reason for this is because the UN, the WHO, the World Economic Forum, the World Bank, it's one gigantic communist Marxist organization. And their main goal is to shut down the United States and actually have the sovereignty of the United States moved into the United Nations, which is not going to happen. And eventually what is going to happen is Trump is most likely going to defund the whole thing and move us away from the UN. Because do we really need the UN? Remember, going back in time, the UN was only for peacekeeping, to have all the leaders come together and talk about peace so we don't have World War 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But is that what the UN is doing now? No, not at all. But you could see that the deep state players, they are definitely covering for Antifa. The fake news is covering for Antifa. Mike Paranzino put this out and said, founder of Politico now funds nonprofit newsroom that describes Antifa as anti-fascist movement focused on confronting neo-Nazis and disrupting white supremacist demonstrations. So this individual, the founder of Politico, is supporting Antifa. Andy No says he's running cover for Antifa and is using a lot of money to train student journalists to be the next brigade of Antifa propagandists and liars. It's exactly what is happening. And this is why Trump signed an executive order, remember, dismantling domestic terrorism networks. Anyone that supports Antifa, anyone that funds it, anyone that uses their news stations to cover for them, they're all going to be implicated in supporting terrorism. And we could see that Trump has prepped and he's prepared for what is coming. And I think we all know what is coming. Riots and war. Are we actually going to enter war? No. Are we going to actually enter riots and cities are going to burn? No. We might see a little bit here and there, but eventually what's going to happen, since he's pre-positioning the National Guard, these will be shut down very, very quickly. Now, the other thing that's very interesting is that, and Nick Sorter put this out, the court now has sided with Trump and refuses to force him to reinstate 11 liberal inspection generals he fired, which is very, very interesting. So if we go back a little bit in time, Trump earlier this year fired over a dozen inspector generals in late-night purge shortly after he was sworn into office. The 8 fired inspector generals sued to get their jobs back and argued that Trump violated a questionable law passed by Congress in 2022. The law required a U.S. president to notify Congress 30 days before firing an inspector general and to explain in detail the reason for the termination. Judge Anna Reyes previously ripped into lawyers for the fired inspectors generally suing to get their jobs back. She said, "Why did you wait 3 weeks to file a lawsuit and then demand an emergency?" So that doesn't make any sense, which means there was no emergency. It took you 3 weeks. So that is very, very interesting, and basically said, you know what? These people are fired. The end. That is it. Now, the other thing that we could see is that people in certain states, they're starting to wake up, especially those blue states like New Jersey, New York, Illinois. I think these people are going to really start to wake up as things start to fall apart around them, and they start to see that Trump is the one that is helping their cities, their state, stopping the riots, having peace around the world. And when you look at New Jersey, you can see that there are 2 individuals that are running right now, and it's Cheryl and Citarelli. Right now, the Emerson poll shows Cheryl and Citarelli 43% even. In a NR poll, it shows Citarelli at 46% and Cheryl at 45%. Trump, he responded to the polls and said, wow. A just out poll has Jack Citarelli essentially beating close to incompetent Mike Sherrill in the race for governor of New Jersey. Jack is tough on crime and cutting taxes, 2 things that people really demand today. He'll be great governor, and Sherrill wants open borders again, men playing in women's sports, transgender for everyone, and all of the things that almost destroyed America. She is a big supporter of the perhaps future communist mayor of New York City. We need Jack in New Jersey. Absolutely. Now, I said Mike before. I actually meant Mickey Sherrill. But what's very interesting is that there is a scandal erupting in New Jersey for the governor's race. Mickey Sherrill, who's a Democrat, was banned from walking with her Naval Academy class due to her participation in a massive cheating scandal that implicated over 130 midshipmen. Sherrill declined to allow the New Jersey Globe inspect any disciplinary records from her time at the U.S. Naval Academy. Jack Citarelli says for 8 years, Mickey Sherrill has built her entire political brand around her time at the Naval Academy and in the Navy, all while concealing her involvement in the scandal and her punishment. The people of New Jersey deserve complete and total transparency. Ooh, this is pretty darn bad news for her. And it looks like, I think in the end, it's all going to fall apart on these people. Remember, most of these individuals that they're bringing in, I'm talking about the D's, they are criminals. They're bad people. They want these people installed. If they can lie about that, they can do pretty much anything. They'll lie about anything. And those are the people that they want in these positions. These are the people that we do not want in these positions. And it seems that when we talked about James Comey being indicted back on September 22nd, it looks like this is where all this is headed. Now, once again, you have to remember these are lesser crimes, lying to Congress. And once again, it's going to be proven because it's documented. It's not going to be he said, she said. These are going to be documented. But you have to remember Trump, he is now taking the side of, I have no involvement in this. The optics are going to be very good for him. Yes, he's saying Comey's a bad guy, Letitia James a bad guy, Brennan Comey. They're all bad people. But he's not involved in any of this. So it looks like there is going to be indictment. And Chuck Grassley put this out, which I find very, very interesting. When ears of corn start to point down, harvest is underway. So it looks like Corney is going to be indicted. Now, Trump says he doesn't know if he's going to be indicted. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. But again, we can see that the corn is ready to be harvested. And you have to remember, Comey changed his name to Corney. So when you search documents, the computer can't find it. He changed it to Corney. So the R and the N make it look like it's an M, but that's to the naked eye. But in reality, when a computer with the software looks at it, it sees it as an R and an N. So this way, nothing ever comes up. So he is corn. He's ready to be harvested. So they're all saying that everyone's expecting an indictment to come in days, which is very, very interesting. And you have to remember, he lied to Congress. He said he didn't leak anything. And if you go back a little bit in time, there was certain individual, McCabe, that said he did leak information. Take a listen to the exchange between Ted Cruz and Comey, and you could see that Comey did lie to Congress.
On May 3rd, 2017, in this committee, Chairman Grassley asked you point blank, quote, have you ever been an anonymous source in news reports about matters relating to the Trump investigation or the Clinton investigation? You responded under oath, quote, never. He then asked you, quote, have you ever authorized someone else at the FBI to be an anonymous source in news reports about the Trump investigation or the Clinton administration? You responded again under oath, no. Now, as you know, Mr. McCabe, who works for you, has publicly and repeatedly stated that he leaked information to the Wall Street Journal and that you were directly aware of it and that you directly authorized it. Now, what Mr. McCabe is saying and what you testified to this committee cannot both be true. One or the other is false. Who's telling the truth?
I can only speak to my testimony. I stand by what the testimony you summarized that I gave in May of 2017.
So your testimony is you've never authorized anyone to leak. And Mr. McCabe, if he says contrary, is not telling the truth. Is that correct?
Again, I'm not going to characterize Andy's testimony, but mine is the same today.
All right, I'm going to make a final point because my time has expired. This investigation of the president was corrupt. The FBI and the Department of Justice were politicized and weaponized. And in my opinion, there are only two possibilities: that you were deliberately corrupt or woefully incompetent. And I don't believe you were incompetent. This has done severe damage to the professionals and the honorable men and women at the FBI because law enforcement should not be used as a political weapon. And that...
Now, of course, what they're going to do is they're going to say, no, we didn't lie. He said, she said, or he said, he said. But eventually what's going to happen is you're going to see documentation showing that he was the person that leaked it to his friend, leaked it out to the public. And when people see this, they're going to say, okay, if he can lie about this and try to cover it up, what else did he do? This is how it begins. Clandestine put this out and said, if Comey or Letitia James get indicted, because they're also saying Letitia James is going to be indicted, the Dems, mainstream media are going to start squealing that this is some sort of unprecedented authoritarian weaponization of justice. When they try to pull this bullshit, remind them that their favorite saying used to be, no one is above the law. And actually, when these people get indicted, I think every single person on social media should put no one's above the law. And once again, yes, they're going to try to counter all this. They're going to try to spin it. They're going to try to do whatever they possibly can. But again, this is what Trump and the Patriots want. They're bringing them down this path. And they're going to produce evidence that shows that, yeah, they were the ones who did all this. Remember, these are documented things. What Letitia James did, it's not like, oh, let's just see if we can prosecute her like they did with Trump. They never showed any documentation. Actually, the bank said the opposite of what Letitia James was saying. But we're going to see documents that shows there's a signature from Letitia James that she lied on her mortgage form. We're going to see that James Comey, he is the one who leaked this information, probably paid his friend or other people. But you can see that the fake news, they're prepared and ready for this. Svetlana Lakova put this out and said, deep state creatures had months to prepare for the possible Comey indictment. Operation Mockingbird is out in full force. Talking points, President Trump is a dictator. Case against Comey has no merit. President Trump is weaponizing the DOJ, unlike Biden and Obama. Jen Psaki is ready to go. And everyone at MSNBC, CNN, and the rest, they're prepared and ready to go. But again, it's all going to fail. They're going to spin it. They're going to push it. And in the end, the actual evidence is going to come out. And people are going to say, wait a minute, he lied. There's actual documents. And he tried to cover it up. The fake news tried to cover it up. This is not going to go well for them. And remember, Jim Comey's daughter was just recently fired. Does everyone realize that Jim Comey has a son-in-law in the DOJ? Is he trying to prevent Comey from being arrested? His name is Troy Edwards. Is he a sleeper in the DOJ? Remember, Troy Edwards was a prosecutor on the Oath Keepers January 6th trial, where Biden's corrupt DOJ claimed, based on bogus evidence, that the Oath Keepers intended to commit an insurrection on January 6th. Well, we know that's not true. It was the deep state players. So think about this for a second. When everyone says, why can't we just arrest everyone? It has to start off slow, and we have to move forward. And we need to make sure that we have the proper judges in place because, again, if there's a judge that's assigned that's corrupt, this is going to be a complete and utter disaster. Remember, this is pretty much black and white right here. Did he lie? Didn't he lie? If it's documented, it shows that he lied. Same thing with Letitia James. So I do believe Trump and team, they're starting off slow. And it looks like Stephen Miller basically confirms that multiple charges are expected against Comey about lying. So let's see how this all plays out. And this is going to be very, very interesting moving forward. Catherine Herridge says, pay attention to page 1. FBI leak investigation, Tropic Vortex was a criminal referral. Allegation is that disclosure of classified information to reporters was authorized by Comey. As FBI director, Comey would know whether his actions violated 18 U.S.C. 1924, which criminalizes mishandling classified documents. Intelligence is born classified, and it is determined by the originating agency. Don't fall for the argument that the records were not marked classified at the time. Markings don't determine classification. The content of the record does. So, once again, he should know. Now, you have to remember, Trump, he wanted Lindsay Halligan as the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia. And we know that Bondi appointed Mary Cleary, and it looks like Trump really wanted Lindsay Halligan to handle all of this. And since she's in the Eastern District of Virginia, there are a lot of judges there. And there are only maybe 3 Trump-appointed judges in this district. And the other ones are Bill Clinton, Obama, Bush, and Biden. And there's a total of something like 12 judges or something like that. Now, what's very interesting is that if it does go to the Eastern District of Virginia, there's going to be a chance that it could be Brink Emma, who's a judge, and that was appointed by Bill Clinton, Alston, which is Trump's judge, Giles, which is Joe Biden's judge, and Nachmanoff, which is Obama's judge. But let's see how this all plays out. And I think this is an open and shut case because it would be documented. And same thing with Letitia James. But this reminds me of Post 3570. And this is August 1st, 2019. It says C before D, Coates before D class, or is it Comey before D class? Very, very interesting. And Comey's arrest will definitely lead to Hillary Clinton. It will definitely lead to Obama. Epstein will be brought into the picture. And what's very interesting is that Trump on Truth, he put out a truth and it says treason. Trump stuns reporters after declaring Barack Obama will face justice because all roads lead to who? Obama. And as they lead to Obama, who else do they lead to? Soros. And what's very interesting, and Nick Sorter put this out, multiple U.S. attorneys have been ordered to draft plans to investigate an organization funded by George Soros. So basically, they're now looking into Soros, and we're going to see that most likely there'll be a grand jury that will be impaneled, and we'll be sitting here waiting for the indictment. Now, you have to remember, these cases against these individuals are much, much more complex compared to Comey just lying to Congress. Yes, Comey's done a lot more, and there'll be other indictments coming out against him, but you got to start someplace. The same thing with Letitia James. But we'll have to see how this all plays out, and we'll have to see what judge is assigned to these individuals. Because think about what they did to Trump when they actually forced a judge on Trump, even though that this person was not next in rotation. They actually said, okay, we're not going to put any of these judges there. Let's use this judge, even though this judge was not up to be appointed to Trump's case. So let's see how this all plays out. It's going to be very, very interesting. But we can see the deep state players, they are now threatening Trump and his administration. And the people of this country right now, they're actually trying to blackmail Trump right now into shutting down the government. So they're saying, listen, if you don't do what we say, we're going to shut it down. We want the money. Give us the money. Trump responded to all of them and said, after reviewing the details of the unserious and ridiculous demands being made by the minority radical left Democrats in return for their votes to keep our thriving country open, I've decided that no meeting with their congressional leaders could possibly be productive. They are threatening to shut down the government of the United States unless they can have over $1 trillion in new spending to continue free health care for illegal aliens, a monumental cost, force taxpayers to fund transgender surgery for minors, have dead people on the medical rolls, allow illegal alien criminals to steal billions of dollars in American taxpayer benefits, try to force our country to again open our borders to criminals and to the world, allow men to play in women's sports, and essentially create transgender operations for everybody's. These radical left views and policies is what allowed me to win the presidential election, including all 7 swing states and the popular vote in an historic landslide. There are consequences to losing elections, but based on their letter to me, the Democrats haven't figured that out yet. They're trying to eliminate the popular $50 billion rural and vulnerable hospital fund, which was passed with only Republican votes and proudly signed into law by me. The Democrats in Congress seem to have totally lost their way. They obviously have no idea what it means to put America first or to make America great again. All congressional Democrats want to do is enact radical left policies that nobody voted for. High taxes, open borders, no consequences for violent criminals. Men and women's sports, taxpayer-funded transgender surgery, and much more. Few people voted for what they represent, which would lead to the destruction of America. Instead, people voted for common sense. And that's what the Republican and your president, Donald J. Trump, stand for. I look forward to meeting with them if they get serious about the future of our nation. We must keep the government open and legislate like true patriots, rather than hold American citizens hostage, knowing that they want our now thriving country closed. I'll be happy to meet with them if they agree to the principles in this letter. They must do their job. Otherwise, it will just be another long and brutal slog through their radicalized quicksand. To the leaders of the Democratic Party, the ball's in your court. I look forward to meeting with you when you become realistic about the things our country stands for. Do the right thing. Donald J. Trump, President of the United States. So the ball is in their court. Now, Speaker Johnson says the House Republicans have already done the job of passing a clean bipartisan bill to keep the government open. Now it's up to the Senate. who have long said shutdowns are bad and hurt people. So basically, remember the D's, they said, no, if you shut down the government, it's terrible. So basically, Trump is going to be using this against them. The ball is in their court. And if they want to go down this path, Trump, he has a countermeasure in place. He says, you know something? If we're going to shut down the government, I'm going to fire, and Russ Voss is saying this, I'm going to fire people in the different agencies. Mass firings. That's what's going to happen. Think about that for a sec. So basically, OMB is warning in a new memo that they will basically fire thousands of federal employees in the event of a government shutdown on October 1st. Amused put this out and said, if Democrats shut down the government in October, Trump has ordered Russ Vought to permanently eliminate jobs when discretionary funding lapses and no alternative funding sources are available. In past shutdowns, Democrats have been able to assign blame to Republicans and face no consequences. Everyone just gets a vacation and back pay a few days later. This time, it's going to cost thousands of government union jobs. Checkmate. How many jobs? Well, right now, it's between 700 and 800,000 jobs. Now, think about it. Is this one way to drain the swamp? Absolutely. If Trump does fire these people, do you think these people are just going to come right back to their jobs? No, they're fired. So think about what the D's did, and think about Obama when the government was shut down during his time. He put up fences around the monuments to make the people feel the pressure. Trump is going to say, listen, we just don't have the money. You're all fired. Bye-bye. You can blame the Democrats for this. They don't want to keep the government open. They don't want to give the money. Remember, they're the ones who continually said shutting down the government is terrible. We shouldn't be doing this. Trump is prepared to drain the swamp. But you think as we approach September 30th, do you think the D's are going to cave? I do. They're going to realize that Trump isn't kidding, that Trump is going to nuke everything that they have in place, and it's going to leave them with nothing. So I think they're going to fold before that. And Trump, I think he's going to get his way. And I think the continuing bill, the clean continuing bill that keeps the government open, that's going to be passed. Now, once again, no matter which way they go, they're screwed. Think about it. If he fires 700 to 800,000 people, I mean, it's going to be done in blocks. They're screwed. If they go along with Trump, they're screwed because he's going to get rid of these people anyhow. No matter which way you look at it, the D's do not have any leverage. Trump has all the leverage. And Trump is using all of this against them. He's leading them down the path, and he's preparing the nation for what? He's preparing the nation to take everything back from the deep state players and to expose the deep state players. And I think once this is done, it is game over for the deep state players. They will never, ever be able to win another election. And once we win the midterms, he's going to move very, very quickly. Not him, but the people that are in certain positions. They're going to move very, very quickly to have accountability because he'll have the people on his side. Why? Because the Patriots are in control. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.